to another Fireside Chat with TP Women. Today, we are talking to my wonderful, lovely mentor and friend, Debbie Burgess. We're celebrating International Women's Day this month, and I thought who better than to talk to than the person who just inspires me constantly to share her BPO journey with all of our friends. So, welcome, Debbie. Thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And I always love anytime I get Mo time. So thank you. And I love just the opportunity just to share a little bit of my past. So first thing obviously is I need to step back and explain how I got where I'm at. So we're going to go back to kind of where I came from. So I came from a family of victims, which I think most of us did. So it's where do we go from there? So I grew up in a broken home. No issues. Most of us did. My mom got remarried. She remarried an individual when I was 10, who moved us out to the middle of nowhere. Literally, no power, no water, nothing. He did this obviously for own personal reasons, as he was not a good man. Long story short, at the age of 12, he said, "I'm an adult. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye." So from the age of 12, they dropped me off in Salt Lake City with $50 in a bag, and I was an adult. Clearly was not an adult, nor did I know how to be an adult. So I did what I needed to do to survive. And it was back in the day when apparently hitchhiking doesn't kill you, because I've hitchhiked across the country multiple times and I'm still alive to speak of it. But spent a lot of my time for the next 4 or 5 years just surviving. That was kind of my MO. I met my husband. I moved back to Utah when my younger sister had stated that she was being abused by my stepdad. So I moved back. My mom actually had 2 small children. One was only a couple of days old at the time. She was really struggling. I was struggling and had taken some drugs to kind of, I think, probably more get back at everyone else. Nobody loves me. This is to hurt the rest of you, right? Was put in the hospital. Was in the ICU. That forced my mother, who lived out where there was no phone, no TV, no power, nothing, to move into town to try to be with me. They said I probably wasn't going to live, but if I did, I would have severe mental issues from the drug overdose.
And how old were you?
So I would have been 16. So I was 16. They pumped my stomach and then kept me in ICU. So they came in and stayed on the floor of a empty office building that a friend owned. So my sister was there when it was time to return home so 3 days later, they released me to foster care, and my sister would not go home and shared with my mom that she was being abused. So my mom said, "Done, this is over." And she left my stepdad. So now I am just almost 17 and am trying to decide what I'm gonna do with my life. So never been to school since I was, in elementary school. So really just trying to figure it out. Obviously high school wasn't gonna be an option for me. Luckily for me, I went into beauty school. I met my husband at 17. He was 23, and we knew each other 3 months. And I was told we were in love and I was going to have this beautiful baby. So we got married.
More than that.
I know. He was 23. I was 17. My mom signed for us to get married. My thought process at the time was, I'll stay with him till I have this baby and then I'm off and life is good. The next few years were just chaos, because that's what I knew. Survive. What can you do to survive? And I remember being constantly broke, it was awful. And it was awful for me. It was awful for my children. It was not a good place to be. So I got to a point where I'm thinking now, this is probably 5 years later, and I'm done. I'm done surviving. I've watched my whole family survive, and they're not doing a great job of it. and I want to thrive. I want to do something different. And the only thing that's going to change that is me. So this is when I decided it's about a life of design, and I'm the one designing it. I am designing this nightmare that I'm living every day, and it has to stop. So how am I going to make this stop? Something has to change. So I decide my husband's already working day and night, 13, 16 hours a day. He's working as an electrician, and then at night he works side jobs in order to help pay. So I've got to go back to work. I have little children. How am I going to do that? So I'm looking for what can I do overnight? Can I work at the Holiday Oil? What can I do so that we don't have to pay daycare? Because we are not making enough to pay the bills. So it's not as if we're overspending. And I had heard from a friend in church that there was this call center. And I thought, okay, don't know anything about call centers, never done anything like this, but I'll try this. This sounds fun. And it had an overnight shift. So I could come in at 3 a.m. and still be out by 7. So before my husband had to go to work, I could be home. So this is going to be ideal, right? This is back in the fun old days of um, prepaid cell phones, which for those of you who don't know, you used to have to buy your minutes. So if you, for any reason, did not have minutes on your phone, you would get an operator from your cell phone service, which I thought was the best job on the planet. And again, this is because I've been a stay-at-home mom, taking care of my kids, surviving, and now I got to speak to hundreds of people every day and make a difference, laugh with them, really just enjoy what I was doing. And we had queues, 4-hour queues. I remember breaks, lunches, you'd have a queue, you'd come back, there was still a queue. And I remember people complaining and me thinking, this is just fun. I was never bored. It was, you talk to grandmas, you talk to truckers, you talk to everybody in between, and you made an impact. So at the end of the day, I would go home just lit up, excited that I'd made a difference. Just by having a conversation. So we had the client come in. So I was working for Convergys at the time. Client came in and was listening to calls and pulled my supervisor aside and asked if it would be possible that they could use me to help with training. Never done training, never done anything, right? Okay, if that's where you need me, I'll do anything. So she actually, because the client enjoyed my calls, my willingness to learn, I went into a class in the morning. I got my mother-in-law to watch my kids, take them to school, and I would take a training class from 8 a.m. to 4 with a class. And then I was training the PM class of the same information that we did. Never had training experience, but they believed in me. And it loved it. I loved training. I loved everything about it. And now at this point, I'm realizing maybe I really want to do something with my life. Maybe I can do more than this. So at the same time that as soon as this training is done, I actually enroll in the community college. I went and got my GED, which I didn't even have, to get my community college so I could go to the community college. Because I thought, I want to do something when I grow up. I want to make a difference, whether that's social work. So I have my 2 kids, and I had my one at 17 and my other at 19. So I'm probably, both my kids are in school, so maybe 25-ish, maybe 25-ish. Decide I'm going to go back and learn this, go to school. So I was going to school at the same time that I was working. They moved me from training into a TL role. From the TL role, they had an opening for what they called a B2 or it was like an operations manager. So within a 2-year period, I went from an agent role into an operations manager role. Wow. Loved the people I worked with, loved what I did, but I had never understood business. So the more I saw business, the more I was going to school and kind of learning about it, the more I thought it was kind of ugly. And I wasn't really loving the company I was working for because I felt like everything was about the dollar, but we weren't caring for our people. And so it wasn't a good fit for me. So one day, in a fit of anger, I posted my resume and then I pulled it back down the next day, but I had already been reached out to by a bank. And this bank reached out to me for a team lead role. I was thrilled. I thought, oh, this is perfect. Team lead is the best job there is out there. So I go in as the TL thinking this will be perfect. And one of the first things they did within the first few months of me being there is say, we're having financial difficulties. We need to outsource this. So they wanted to outsource to India. So they hired Genpact to do this. And they needed to have some people who knew the business go over. And they said, would you be willing to go to India for 21 days to do this?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Never, I was like, absolutely, sign me up. I want to try it, right? And my husband was fair game. He's like, yep, make it happen, whatever you need to do. He's always been extremely supportive of me. So I went to India and they actually asked me to stay, did not stay, but came back. And instead of giving me a team, they put me in a role of basically account management where I managed all of the outsourced vendor partners. That's how I kind of pivoted to the account management side. Again, not something I had chose, not something that I worked for them for 4 years. And to be completely honest, I would still work with them today if they were in business. But at the end of the day, they did end up closing their doors. It was a small business bank. It loved them, miss them to this day, but it was a great opportunity. So I worked in the same building as eBay, had seen people. So eBay said, hey, come work with us. So there was no need to apply or to do anything because I knew the same security, the same people, and went in there as a team leader. Devastated when about a year later, they did some reductions in force, which at this time I was working the 1 p.m. or I guess I was working a 1 p.m. to 11. And I had 3 teams because people kept quitting for that shift. And I loved my people. So I just said, just give them to me, give them to me. So they did this thing at eBay where you'd re-interview for your job every year. I was thinking, okay. So I went through the process, did everything. Everybody's like, they're not going to make you do it, right? Because you don't need to do this. Because it again, had 3 teams of, so 45 people who did love and support me. I had rubbed a C-suite individual wrong. And I knew at the time that I did it, but it was not intentional. It was during a presentation, a learning presentation, where all of us were in the same room and they had put me up to do a role play with him. And I knew I had upset him, but it was not intentional. It was all part of the role play. So to me, it was water off a duck's back. I didn't, but I knew at the time when they pulled me in and said, we're not going to extend you. I knew that that's what had caused it. And I was devastated. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm going to start over. They offered to keep me on as an agent, making the same salary, picking my own schedule. So you'd think I would have just stayed, but no, I want to lead people. I want to help. So I got the opportunity. I saw an upcoming BPO that was just starting. And I thought, I'll go in there again as a TL. I'm fine with this because it's not about the money. It's about the impact I was making. So I took a job as a TL. I was a TL for 3 days and they promoted me to an operations manager. I was an operations manager for 2 months, after which they asked me to help with account management. I did account management for about a year. And then they asked me to open a site in Tucson. So I moved. I would work Monday through Friday in Tucson. And I took a site that was a ham packing company. And so we just emptied it all out, laid carpet. And within 3 years, we had 1,500 people and 7 accounts. And I will never forget that time. It was an incredible time in my life. Again, it was the team coming together and working together. My daughter at this point is, my youngest is almost ready to graduate high school. It's just time for me to go spend some time and be with my family. So I said, I either need to go home or I'm going to look for another job. And they immediately moved me back to account management. So that's where I stayed in account management there, was promoted up throughout the ranks. My CEO left the company, moved to another company, at which time he actually reached out to my current CEO and said, I have someone that you need to talk to. And I did an interview with David. David brought me on as a VP. And from there, I've been with BXI for now 7 years, and I have done operations as an SVP and then account management as a VP. I have been blessed beyond words to be able to be part of the BPO. But what keeps me going and what Mo, just makes me want to sell people on BPO is because you can be you. You don't need to be, you don't need to go to school and do everything just right. You can have a mess of a life and turn it around and make it what you want. You can start where you are and you can be anything you want to be. And I'm so blessed and grateful that I had the opportunity to fall into this path. And I would recommend it to anyone. Love BPO and the people that I've met.
When was it that made the intentional to live your life by?
It was one day sitting. It was a Monday, and I know it's a Monday because I had two little kids in the car, and I'm pulled up in front of my husband's boss's house, waiting for a paycheck on Monday morning because I bought groceries over the weekend, and the check is going to bounce. So I need to beat that check to the bank with his check. I was always living on. I was just surviving, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was depressed, and I just thought I can't anymore. And I realized when I looked at my examples, my family and the things, that the reason they still lived the way they lived is because they made a choice to live that way. They still are doing nothing different. And if I continue to do the same thing I'm doing today, I will be them. But I'm capable of so much more. And so that day was the day I said, I'm going to do something different. Went home and looked for work.
Wow. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to share your journey with us, and from start to end. Like it basically tells everyone that we know and interact with, in our industry especially, that you can start from where you think you are, which is at the bottom, and really tap into the potential that everyone has within them to drive your life in the direction that you want it to go in, and take the risks. Worst case scenario, you're told no. Worst case scenario, you fall down. Like in your story, it was up and down. You fell backwards a lot, but you always picked back up and went forward to get to where you are today. And it's just remarkable. I still, every time I hear the story, I'm absolutely motivated by it.
Life is not a straight line, right? And a mistake is only a mistake when you repeat it. Otherwise, it's a learning. So just embracing every time something goes wrong. And there was a lot in that eBay segment that I had to stop and tell myself, Debbie, what did you do? Because I know it's not your performance. Everyone knows it's not your performance, but I stepped in it. And how am I going to recover? And how am I going to learn from it and not do it again? But not sitting down and just giving up, because that's the easy way to go.
Yeah.
Woe is me. I'm a victim. No, I'm not. This is my life. And every single page in my book, I'm writing. And if it is a mess, then I'm choosing to put that in my book. I'm trying to bypass or at least shorten those chapters as much as I can as I get older, so that we can have a little bit more smooth sailing.
I love it. I
appreciate you so much. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Of course. And thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.